Hey everybody,
Hello.
this is Joel. I'm here in my hot pink bedroom with the big black polka dots, and it's time for the weekly Google Hangout for the Dryden Experiment. We had a little bit of confusion about the time. Apparently I don't know what time zone Eastern Australia is in, but we got this meeting scheduled specifically at this time for Greta and Nicholas to join us, and they're both here, so we're going to go ahead and start the meeting and let folks drop in as they want to. We've had, once again, a really exciting week with a really fantastic rate of growth in the Dryden Experiment, and we've got a couple of folks who I think are anxious to tell us about what's going on. Greta Vanderroel, would you like to talk about your exciting news in Dryden this week?
All right, I finally have published my latest novelette. It's 15K, so it's not a great big chunk of anybody's time. It's called The Demon's Eye, and it's out at all the usual places. I've published it through D2D, so it's in Barnes & Noble, Kobo, iTunes, and of course the ubiquitous Amazon. What else is there to say? I think the most important thing I have to say about it really is that I'm hoping that it does very well and that it will spawn some people that create some interest of people that might want to use those things that I've created in my little piece of the universe and expand it from there. And I think it's very important that when we do put our books out there that we have a sort of a concerted way of, an organised way of having acknowledgement to the Dryden universe so that people know where to go and look, use it as an advertising medium, a marketing situation. I haven't done it very well in this book at the moment, but I think we need to have links back to the website and all those sorts of things and use the logos. And could I also suggest, Joel, that we change the logo to say, instead of the Dryden Experiment, call it the Dryden Universe, because an experiment can be anything.
Okay, I don't know how I feel about that, but I'll think about it. I like the word experiment because what we're doing is really sort of unorthodox and novel, but a lot of people do refer to the Dryden universe, and maybe we need to acknowledge that. In terms of referring back to Dryden, I want to speak about that for just a second because there's sort of two different things there, and the one is the Creative Commons obligation, which really just requires that whoever the author or artist is puts a little note on there that says some materials, Creative Commons BYSA 4.0, the Dryden Experiment. But your point is absolutely valid. Part of the whole point of working together on the Dryden is that then we're able to cross-promote and back each other and help each other have access to markets. So absolutely some language with links on how to find the author and artist page or how to find the YouTube page or how to find the website is absolutely appropriate. And I want to thank you for emailing me today and asking about how to get that information in there because I do think it's very important. For folks who have not yet read Greta's book, which I really recommend, I read it before release and really enjoyed it. Greta has a empire in the M24 galactic cluster, which is a star cluster, an actual star cluster in the Milky Way galaxy. And I think we decided you were 26,000 years in the future. Is that right, Greta?
I'm not absolutely certain, Joel. I think it was certainly 20,000 plus.
Okay. But
Technocrat destroyed everybody, and after Soler made any sort of movement by humans within the closer to Earth space impossible.
There you go. There you go. Wonderful. So she is very much writing in the middle of the Belle Epoque and has the distinction of being the first published material to come out of that era of our history. So wonderful news for Greta. I really encourage everybody to stop by. We'll get the Amazon link and the information below this meeting if you're watching this video later. It's a very enjoyable story. Like she said, it's 15,000 words, so it's not reading Victor Hugo or anything, but it's a very enjoyable story, and I think it's priced at $1.15 American, which is, I think, a very reasonable price for the quality of the story that you get. So please check the link below. We'll have at least the Amazon link and probably a couple of the others below. So congratulations, Greta. So with that exciting bit of news, Nick, how's Big Damn Dryden?
Big Damn Dryden's going along nicely, Joel. Now, is everyone aware, firstly, what Big Damn Dryden is before I get too much into that stuff?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and introduce it for us, Nick?
All right. A while ago, me and my wife wrote a role-play game called Big Damn Sci-Fi, and it was a generic space opera system, and part of that, a reason for that was we wanted something that was really nice, short, flexible, and concise, so we wrote a rulebook that was a core rulebook which was under 2,000 words, which if you're familiar with role-play games, that's almost unheard of. So from there, when I saw Joel's sort of message pop up in a few role-play groups on Facebook asking for a bit of I guess a role-play addition to the Dryden universe, I kind of jumped on that, and we've kind of built it and grown it ever since, both myself and with Joel's continual and ever thankful input. So from there, we've been adapting both Dryden to a role-play setting and both Big Damn Sci-Fi to the Dryden universe in the book that we're calling Big Damn Dryden. So it's going to be a, what are we at now, about a 15,000 word?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, about 15,000 word role-play book. And what that's going to contain is going to contain a bit of background to the Dryden universe, particularly the Premier area, particularly focusing on corporations. It's going to have a core set of rules, and it's going to have a variety of NPCs, and then at the end it's also going to have some introductory kind of adventures for people to run through with their players. The premise of it is I've kind of zeroed in on corporations, and particularly the big three corporations of the Premier era, and to give the roleplay game a bit of focus and context in a narrow sense that we can then expand out with subsequent splat books, they're called, or expansion books in the setting. In zeroing in on corporations, I premise that players take the role of QBs, and a QB is sort of a vicarious troubleshooter for a corporation. And they handle all these sort of unorthodox corporate espionage type problems. If you've got a planet that you don't want to send, a legal team into, you send in the QBs. If you want to steal the another corporation's data without stealing the corporation's data, you send in your QBs. So you're kind of doing the Han Solo / Blade Runner type work of the Dryden universe. And then from there we can expand out to adding the League of Planets and so forth. But at the very start, it's basically your lovable rogues type people.
Wonderful.
As far as the book goes, we're kind of about to enter a phase called playtesting. I think we're getting close to playtesting, aren't we, Joel?
Yeah, I think
that would be your reading. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And playtesting basically means it's kind of the fun bit of writing a roleplay game where you just sit down and play the game for a while, see how it feels, kind of flag any obvious problems there with the system, and just give things a nice little tweak. It's kind of, I guess, the game editing part of editing.
Yep. Yep.
I think that's I think that's about where Big Damn Dryden's at.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. The couple of things that I would add there is that we will play test at least 2 locations here in Kansas, and maybe 3. We have a very good relationship with Boom Comics here in Kansas, and I have a commitment from them to at least 2 role-play locations, and then they're working on opening a 3rd store, and depending on the timing, we'll also beta test. The other thing that I would add is that Nick has really gone above and beyond putting together a rule set. When you get that game book in your hand, you will have Dryden content that doesn't exist anywhere else. He's done a number of things. We've got some biographies of characters that we've been working on, and even short bits of fiction. Nick has started writing sort of almost kind of little play samples, conversations that might happen in the universe, to help give flavor to the game, and some of them are just hysterical. So Big Damn Dryden is a really exciting thing that's happening in the Dryden universe, and we really look forward to supporting that in the future. I want to welcome Tracy Vincent. Tracy works for me at Dryden House, and is currently working on a book for Laura Conrad that we'll have her talk about here in just a moment. But Tracy, welcome to the meeting. Apparently I don't know time zones in Australia because I scheduled this meeting at the wrong time, but everybody showed up anyway, so on we go. All right, so next I want to introduce a new person that is working with Dryden for the first time here this week, Eugene Kelly. Eugene, I'm pretty much going to let you introduce yourself and the ideas that you're working on, so have at it.
Okay. Well, first of all, one of my current most project deals with is in the European Rise of the European anthology.
Right.
What I've heard, my story is going to be a little bit different from what other people are doing. It's going to be the same story. It's going to do with obviously the European rising up, kicking off all people, but it's going to be a lot more Lovecraftian. It's going to have the Europeans going to be this big kind of almost like bio monster spewing out more bio monsters. I mean, it's just sort of it's going to be there's going to be some suggestion it's justified doing this because humans have been polluting its world and such. But it's going to be portrayed as being a very nasty creature, and this is going to be sort of the beginning of its rise as sort of a galactic superpower. And then beyond that, I'm gonna start working on a set of stories way in the future in the dark. What it is basically, obviously in the Scourge, Technoprey come along, and the Scourge come along, the galaxy gets ruined. One of the powers that, of course, Il-Solterra is destroyed, but before then there's a group of other whales that break off cetaceans. They start their own different society, which is more militaristic. It's a lot more cynical. The ships aren't quite as beautiful. And they're able to sort of, at first the Il-Solterra people kind of mock them, but then the Il-Solterra is destroyed. So so basically what happens is that these other cetaceans, they survive. The other story is going to be focusing on, in the center of the galaxy there's going to be a handful of worlds located around these black holes. It's there's a lot of instability. They're very nasty, almost like Venus-type planets. They're going to be sort of the remnants of Cirque Corporation. Obviously, Cirque Corporation has been dead for thousands of years, but these are going to be remnants of Cirque Corporation colonies where the whole planet bases itself around heavy industry, where they make weapons, they ship off heavy metals, but even though they're technically independent, they're kind of under the domination of these other cetaceans and other people, who the governments on the planet are very much puppet governments. So in this environment where people live basically hand to mouth, it's sort of like space age, third world. There's going to be this individual who rises up and starts this very violent revolution, just utterly destroys the puppet governments, unites the planets, and because they're heavy industry, they're going to unite, and because they're going to be so full of rage, they're going to believe that humans have basically been shoved aside for thousands of years. So they see themselves as the power that's going to bring back humans as the supreme force in the galaxy. And so they start this massive war of conquest. They go to war with cetaceans, and they push them back, and they go far, far, far to the galaxy. Also, for a brief time, they actually push back the Scourge for a period of time. They don't completely destroy it, which ends up being a bad thing. But in fact, they almost actually go to Earth, because they want to go back to Earth because that's the home planet. So they get to Earth, they've got this huge empire, but after basically one or two rulers, I've got the first ruler is going to be sort of like the Genghis Khan character. Then we're going to have kind of a weak ruler. There's going to be one more really powerful ruler. It's going to be kind of a female. I'm going to have to be a female. It's going to be like a Catherine the Great type character. Then slowly you're going to have more and more. The Emperor's going to become weaker. Some of the human allies are going to fall away. And then the Scourge, and also there's going to be conflict between Earth and the Empire. Because the Earth, even though it doesn't have any actual powers, it doesn't have much of a military, it sees itself as the center of human civilization. So it tries to gain influence over the Empire. So when it does this, meanwhile the Scourge have been pushed back because they evolved so quickly. They've evolved to become a lot more dangerous than before. So once the Empire starts to weaken, they come back in a huge manner and push back. They don't completely destroy the Empire, but it becomes sort of a remnant, back to almost sort of the core world it was before. And the Scourge now are incredibly powerful. Also, the humans when they were on top of it, what they started to do is, in order to gain more power, they began to do sort of some kinds of rituals and stuff to bring in other interdimensional monsters to sort of help them become more powerful. Well, when they're pushed back, they don't have more power. Now these interdimensional monsters are in there as well. So they're going to interact with the Scourge in different ways. There can be other various aliens. They're all going to come together. We're going to have this universe filled with sort of very much like a Dead Space universe. It's full of rusted metal and weird monsters. They're going to form their own societies. And it's very much, you're going to have humans and cetaceans, and also the European, who are going to be there, but they're going to be basically fighting for their lives for a long period of time against these very nasty monster societies.
Eugene, can I kind of step in and contextualize a little bit for folks who are meeting you for the first time?
Sure.
Okay, the empire that Eugene is talking about, one of the premises of the Dryden Experiment is that we've got 10 billion stars in the galaxy, and so you can have really a very massive empire, million-star empire, rise up and fall in the galaxy, and it's only occupied a few fractions of a percent. And when Eugene approached us about this idea, he wanted to write right at the end of the Belle Epoque and into the dark. And so what you've heard him describe is an empire that looks like one of the Belle Epoque empires at the beginning, and then is breaking down into these nightmarish creatures and the Scourge and so on and so forth at the end, and that is very much us moving out of the Belle Epoque and into the dark. When his story begins, the Scourge have destroyed all contact with Earth. Nobody knows if Earth has still survived. And then by the end of his story, the Earth has been found again and is sort of acting almost like sort of a Rome in the Middle Ages sort of influence on this empire. But the empire itself then fails, and we move into that period in the dark where we reset for the pure space fantasy. So I'm sorry, Eugene, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure that folks who weren't on our conversation earlier this week understood where in the universe you were. Please go ahead.
Okay, like I say, yeah, it's going to be sort of the final. By the time this empire comes about, there already has been some period of the dark, but this is going to be, this is almost going to be kind of almost to a certain extent. It's going to be a shift into the dark, but it's also going to be a lull in the dark. It's going to be a shift into the dark because the ships that the humans use, they're completely different from what the Il Solitaire we saw in Belle Epoque. They're more like what you'd see in the Alien movies. They're kind of like Star Destroyer type ships. They're very ugly. They're just built for war. There's no beauty whatsoever. The Cetacean Society, they have some beauty. And one idea I had is that towards the, when Il Solitaire is destroyed, a number, basically a few thousand, maybe 10,000 refugees from Il Solitaire, they flee, and they flee to this other Cetacean Society because they've got nowhere to go. And they kind of meld with it. And obviously the values of Il Solitaire go away because there's no room for it. And the ships they use are partially organic, but also partially metal. But because of the influence of these refugees, this other Cetacean Society, even though it's very different, it kind of sort of sees itself as the heir of Il Solitaire, even though it doesn't act like Il Solitaire whatsoever. Just in their own heads, they see themselves. But this, in a way, this is going to be a lull. Is because when the Empire's height, the Scourge is not going to be that much of a threat, at least in the part of the galaxy. So there's going to be a period where people actually think, okay, well, this is a very tyrannical government, it's very racist, it's very human-centric, but at least you don't have Scourge monsters running around killing everybody. But of course they say that's all going to backfire because Scourges can come back more powerful than before, and the Empire's not going to be able to do much about it.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really exciting. So basically what I told Eugene is that he's going to have 500 years, more or less, from the last time anybody's heard from the Earth, because the Scourge have moved in, until the end of his empire, running roughly from galactic center back out towards Earth. And it's a nice big swatch, and we look forward to seeing material. Eugene, I want to take off from what you said and move over to talk a little bit about the rise of the European. That project is a collection of short stories written by different authors that describe the day when the European decides that he's had enough of human excuse me, had enough of humans, and he's going to protect himself. He's concerned about the environmental damage to Europa, and he eventually becomes, as Eugene mentioned, sort of a local superpower because he builds organic spaceships and takes over an awful lot of human space, bringing into the primer and the hard science fiction part of our history, and starting the Belle Epoque, where we move into empires away from Earth, which is where Greta's empire rises up. Those stories are sort of intentionally a little bit mismatched. One of the things that I really love about the Dryden Experiment is the real diversity of the art and writing that's being done, and I wanted to kind of showcase that. And so I introduced in the video, which I'll put the link below, it's here on the YouTube page, excuse me, I got to make a note now that says put link. So I gave a description in the video and on the WordPress page of sort of what I wanted in terms of how history needed to happen, but then I'm not explaining to anybody this is what the Europan is like, this is how it behaves, this is the experience that humans have. Don Van Osdal's working in that universe, on that storyline. Damien Roach is working on it, Eugene is working on it, Tracy is working on it, and none of those stories are really going to sync up into a single narrative. What they will do is share the experience and be sort of a demonstration project for the talent of Dryden authors. I don't know how many words we're looking at, but if there are folks who are still interested in getting involved in that project or have a sort of an idea that they think would be neat to add to it, or even just some art for it or something, please feel free to get in. That is not closed. We are still developing that, and we have not set a date. Eventually we'll sort of get a feeling for how much content we've got and who it's coming from, and we'll kind of say, okay, we think we can be done by October or whenever we decide, but that hasn't happened yet. So please keep the Rise of Europan in mind if you're looking for an interesting Dryden project. All right, I want to move now to Laura Conrad's book, Lorelei, You'll Never Die, which actually does not happen in the science fiction part of our universe. It happens in the Belle Epoque. So I'm going to talk for just a second, Tracy, about what that means for folks, or not Belle Epoque, in Dryden Epoch. I'm going to talk for just a minute about what that means, and then I'm going to turn Tracy loose, who's doing the editing on that book. What we've done, this science fiction universe that we've set up, is obviously being very successful. We're really enjoying it a lot. But we have an awful lot of authors who kind of look at what we're doing and move on, don't stay involved because they don't write science fiction. And so the very short description of what's going on is that we are starting similar shared universes, except in different genres. We're starting a steampunk universe, we're starting a fantasy universe, and we're starting a post-apocalypse universe, which is what we're going to talk about. This book that's coming up now is going to be the first book in the Dryden Epoch, which is the future which the Earth is destroyed by a nuclear holocaust in the near future, and we start having a boy and his dog and Mad Max and adventures like that. So Tracy, you want to take it away and tell us what's going on with Laura Conrad and her book?
Okay, we're in the process of narrowing down the cover art. We're going to be putting a call out for blogs and Facebook pages to blast our cover art out when we release the cover art. And then we're going to be releasing approximately 25 ARCs to bloggers and reviewers to have reviews set up for the day that it's released. And that will be on, I believe we set up for the 20th of August.
Oh, I don't think I have the dates
I
in
have
this one.
the notes here.
Yes, 20th of August is the book release date. Yeah. Right on. So to give a little context, what Tracy's talking about, the ARCs and the release material, when you come to work in the Dryden Creative Commons universe, you're not at all obligated to publish with us. You're free to publish anywhere you want. Greta, for example, released her book this week on her own recognizance, and Dan Hunt, who works with us, publishes through iUniverse. But Tracy and I run Dryden House, which is a sort of a service industry for folks who like to develop in Dryden but don't want to do the publishing and the support themselves. And when Tracy talks about ARCs and releases to blogs, those are things that we're doing as a part of that process because Laura actually does publish with us. We cross-promote everything that comes out of Dryden, but things that actually come out of Dryden House we're a little closer to and have a little better control of the marketing of. So she's describing some things that we'd be happy to do for you as best we can, but don't always happen when we don't know where the book is going to or coming from. So that book, to give a little more description of it, is the story of a young woman who survives the apocalypse and sets off on this cross-country journey. I've read it. It's exciting. It's dynamic. When you get to the climax of the story, I really felt like I was watching a movie in my head. Laura's writing style, for those of you who maybe read Sky Goddesses of Dryden, she wrote the stories that were adapted into graphics for that. She writes a wonderful, light, easy to get at, fast-paced prose that I really enjoy. And it's also a little bit interesting because it is a conventional narrative and it isn't. There are several short stories in it that are stories told by other characters, and so the plot just sort of stops every once in a while and wanders off into this other story. And it's kind of unique and it's definitely very interesting. And I encourage everybody to look forward to Lorelei, You'll Never Die, which will be coming out of Dryden House on August the 20th. All right, so the only other thing that I actually had on the week's agenda, and then we're just going to open it up and see what anybody else has to offer, is that Il Solitaire, which are the Cetacean human hybrids that Eugene was referring to, were originally designed by Charlotte Garnier, and Charlotte and Gavin are up to something. There was a wonderful image that showed up this last week that was the actual ship that left Vostok Station on Earth, headed for space. That was the Il Solitaire leaving Earth, and Charlotte wrote me and asked for physical descriptions of planets in the Dryden universe, and I don't know what she wanted them for, and when I asked her, she wouldn't tell me. So I just wanted to mention that Il Solitaire is getting some more work done on it, getting some more development, so as we go forward, keep your eyes open for Il Solitaire. The other thing that is maybe coming is we're expecting yet this evening to talk to an author who has some stories out in what appear to be maybe Codex 2. They're very sort of soft sci-fi, much more the science fantasy, and so we're also looking forward to maybe seeing our first Codex 2 materials coming shortly. Oh no, Eugene just fell off the call. Come back, Eugene. All right, so that's the things that I had on the agenda. I want to open it up. I suppose I should open it to you first, Tracy, because you frequently tell me things that I'm missing. Did I miss anything? Or we?
You caught me in the middle of cooking my dinner and putting my son to bed, so I was in and out.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was trying to be prepared for 8:30.
Well, apparently I don't know time zones in Australia because I missed it by more than an hour. So we'll know to do better next time. Well, then the next person I want to ask then is Greta and Nicholas. You are the two we scheduled specifically to make sure that we could pick up this week. Greta, do you have things for us, questions you've been meaning to ask, things that you are interested in that you'd like to have some conversation around?
Not really. I think the most important thing I wanted to say in this meeting I've already said, and that is that I think it's very important that you give folks direction about what you want the front matter to say with respect to Dryden. I mean, that goes a little bit further than just the Creative Commons copyright, which I've put on my books. But as I said in my email to you, at 3 in the morning, I sort of thought to myself,
right on.
Dryden bit, you know. So once I can get back onto a machine, we've had all sorts of dramas with computers and God knows what else in our family at the moment. I'll add a bit more information, which is going to be marketing directed, I suppose, that says go and look and find some more information about Dryden at this web address. And
now, I sent you some hyperlinks and just some sort of suggested text today in response to that email. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it yet, but you should have something in your inbox that will hopefully help sort of set a standard. You're absolutely right. We need to get sort of some boilerplate language that says this is a Dryden experiment and here's what that means and blah, 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 blah. I guess we'll sort of take your lead in terms of what you put on your book, then we'll sort of use going forward.
Yeah, I'll write something up and I'll run it past you before I actually put it in the book.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Eugene, did you have a question?
Yeah, sort of going along with what was being said. Like I saw the the link to the book about link to Greta's book on the Facebook page. But like I was saying before, is there any place, like one place, where you can go and see all the different work that has been done in the Dryden universe? Because I've looked around and it seems to be sort of bits and pieces here and there. And I mean, I'm not saying about like the active content, but I mean just a place where sort of like a database for all that's been written down, where we can find it all.
Not at the moment. For the first 2 years we were in business, I ran a web page and it wasn't successful and I took it down, and now I find myself really missing it. I've sort of started rebuilding things that we had on the web page out on the WordPress blog, and that's where I would put I made a note to myself right here to start a catalog. We do need a single catalog. I'd really kind of like to set up a shopping cart sort of setup where anything that had the Dryden name on it, would be listed there, and you could click then to Amazon or Kobo or wherever it was. Unfortunately, that's sort of at the maximum extent of my web design capabilities. One of the things we are hunting for is somebody with a better grasp of the web than I've got. We have not settled on anyone yet. I kind of suspect that Gavin Revitt may have some untapped skills in that area, but the whole idea of centralizing our web presence is something that we desperately need to do. We're getting big enough that it's not really funny anymore, but I haven't solved it. So it is on our works in progress, but I'm going to have to get back to you with a good answer because I haven't got one.
Okay, and then one thing, this is actually directed at Nicholas, the big damn Dryden. I like that idea. As I said, I have to start writing stuff. I have to start putting out stories and such. But I think the part of the universe I'm creating would really make for a good role-playing game as well, because there are going to be so many different factions. Almost all of that, there'll be all these alliances going back and forth. Borders constantly shifting. It's going to be somewhat based on sort of medieval Europe. I mean, everything's going back and forth. So there's going to be all sorts of creatures and stuff. So
kind of a Dark Ages in space kind of vibe.
Yes, sort of Dark Ages meets Dead Space meets Aliens, that sort of stuff, like Empire from Star Wars, all that stuff all thrown together.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, look, I think there's definitely a possibility there for expansion. I think something that I've been working on a little bit with Joel is we've been kind of writing a wish list of every possible sort of thing that we'd like in the Dryden roleplay game, and I think part of the fun thing, but also the danger with that wish list, is it begins to encompass not only everything Dryden, but also I've developed various sub-rule sets for Big Damn Sci-Fi, and a lot of them kind of leak in. Like I'd love to put in, say, a space football league into the Dryden universe. Not because I particularly like football. I really don't like football, but I like role-playing games about football. Don't ask me which AFL team I go for either, because I don't. Greta, sorry. I know that's very un-Aussie of me. My son actually refused to talk to me for a week when I didn't say I liked the Magpies.
I don't like the Magpies either.
Oh, well, then I guess we're on the same. My father-in-law does, and he's very much the one-eyed Collingwood supporter, which I think means more to you than probably anyone here. But so there's definitely room there, Eugene, for your sort of dark space, alien, great old ones, Lovecraft, Dark Age hybrid in there. I think one thing I was going to ask you, Joel, in particular. was one of the things with the roleplay game, and this is kind of like my rookie mistake when I wrote my first roleplay game, Lion Frankenstein, Atomic Frontier. My rookie mistake was just to kind of put out book after book after book without really going with the inspiration, without any real direction. So I was wondering, is there sort of a direction or a trajectory? Is there a sort of a sequential order for material in the Dryden universe to be sort of, I guess, not so much released, but to be, I guess, re-released, to be approached with each subsequent, I guess, work and edition? I mean, would Eugene's work be sort of, I guess, maybe the next outlet for the roleplay game, or would we sort of look at going, okay, well, maybe we'll do a little bit more on the League of Planets? Would we do minor corporation subsidies or something like that? I mean, what is the sort of, is there an overall trajectory to the universe?
You know, the answer to that, Nicholas, is that there is, but that it's very, very organic. We would have a difficult time supporting role-playing around Eugene's stories right now because they're not finished. They're not there. And so, I mean, that inherently makes it in the future. But even looking at things that I've written, some of the things are now 3 years old, and they're very well known in the universe. And if you were to write rules around them, it would make a lot of sense to people. And some of them are relatively unknown, and writing rules just would not make a lot of sense. So my feeling is like you're writing a role-playing game about the primer, and pretty much anything that you saw in the primer that you wanted to include, like I think your Omega Ball League would absolutely fit in the primer and would be picked up relatively quickly. I think that Draft Pod Racing, which is also from the primer, uses technology that's pretty well understood by people who have experience in the primer and would be picked up very quickly. I would love to see a Lovecraftian sort of role-playing game. Charlotte Garnier would love to see the rules for the whales. There's then, of course, Eugene is introducing this very large section that I think is a lot of promise, but you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that they will come before we build it. What was that movie?
Right. No, I agree.
Where they said if we build it, they will come. Well,
Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner.
There you go. Well, we want to make sure that there's actually an audience out there before we try to introduce it. And these things work in tandem. You know, people will get their first introduction to Dryden through the role-playing game. And they can be taught whatever we'd like to teach them first. And then some people will come to the role-playing game through Dryden, and they'll be looking for things that they know and understanding about the universe. So we just need to sort of stay integrated, have 100 little conversations rather than one big one, and work our way up to whatever the next logical piece is.
Before you go on, I'm going to have to disappear.
All right.
Before I do go, I want to make a point. When I put my little story into Amazon, I put it in a series which I called the Dryden Universe, and that could well be a very simple way of picking up Eugene's point of giving some kind of collection, so that if somebody publishes a book to the Dryden Universe, they put it into that series. And so if anybody comes into Amazon looking, they're going to find the book there.
That's right. If you put the Dryden Experiment in Amazon, you will find, as a matter of fact, you'll find some things that I published that actually aren't in Universe, that were sort of early tests that I need to now take down. But very much so, if you just go, and I think you'll find it true also for the other venues that we've gotten into, just searching for the Dryden Experiment will give you a pretty good sample of what's out there.
Yeah, it probably will. Once again, it's a matter of going forward and having some continuity to how we handle this sort of situation. To say, okay, we've jointly got this series that we call whatever we're going to call it. I called it the Dryden Universe.
I think the Dryden Universe is what we decided for the science fiction part, and the Dryden Experiment is generally the whole overall feel. So, like, the Dryden Apocalypse story would be under Dryden APOC, and all apocalyptic stories would be under Dryden APOC. And the Dryden Universe would, like, you had listed yours as Dryden Universe. I think that's perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Well, there you go. Tracy has spoken. For those of you who think I may be in charge, we should disperse with that idea very quickly. If Tracy, I do whatever the voices in Tracy's head tell me to do, so... All right. Well, Greta, it was wonderful to have you with us today. I want to thank you very much. I'm sorry about the time, and congratulations on your book. Say its title for us one more time.
Yes, The Demon's Eye. And I will
It's a
add,
good story.
yeah, it's just a short story. I will add that a book written in the same kind of universe, which I had written as a standalone before, and which is called A Matter of Trust, will be slightly modified, very slightly modified, to sit in the same Dryden universe. I'm getting a new cover done for it. I'll put in some new front matter, and then there'll be 2 of my stories in there for Dryden.
Wonderful. And before you drop out, let me ask you also, I was going to go through the Demon's Eye and just sort of cull it for location names and character names and start a WordPress page about your empire. Is that good to go? Or am I approved to do this?
You are certainly approved to do that, yes.
All right. Well, Greta, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you all. Catch up with you, Nicholas. I'm not a great AFL fan either.
Excellent.
Catch you later. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I'm actually a New Zealand All Blacks fan myself, which is rugby, which surprisingly neither Greta nor Nick seem to be very interested in.
I've got something about another idea about that role-playing game. I know the current role-playing Big Damn Dryden deals with deals with sort of the different corporations. Well, the story I'm setting in obviously is way long after that. But what it is that the people, the descendants, in this new empire, a lot of, as I say, this is on the planets that were originally colonized by the Cirque Corporation. And because of sort of better record keeping and such, a lot of these people know that they are the descendants of people who are executives in the Cirque Corporation, and they end up becoming sort of members of sort of the I'm just calling it for now the Imperial Court, members of the Imperial government.
So sort of Cirque's neo-feudal hierarchy becomes an actually feudal hierarchy.
Right, exactly.
That's right. I love that comment.
And so what happens is that I have this idea where some of these individuals, I say this is a big ideology of this empire is everything human is good. This is why every religion is tolerated that's human. There are always weird cults that are allowed. It kind of gets out of control. But you have these people who see themselves as the heir to the Cirque Corporation, and at least part of the ideology of this empire is to bring back what they saw as the power of humans under the Cirque Corporation before the European, before Solitaire came along and pushed the human in the far future. Maybe, I don't know how far along you are, Nicholas, but I know I could put forth some character ideas to you for your role playing that could be ancestors of some of the individuals that I'm going to have in my empire.
That sounds good. I like that.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that
an
sort of
interesting idea.
activity.
Yeah, and then when Eugene gets into print, we'll have already a built-in tie across. This is the great descendant of somebody who's been identified as part of Big Damn Dryden. All right, so I kind of want to end the Hangout, the weekly update. If we don't have any other comments, I'm actually expecting another call at 8:30 on this channel that was supposed to happen before this meeting, if I'd have known what time it was, which will not be recorded as part of this broadcast, but anybody who was in this broadcast would be welcome to stay. We're going to be meeting Katerina, who is a new author that we're getting to know. Do we have any comments or questions from anybody? Anything that we want to make sure is out in the weekly update before we stop broadcasting?
Well, this new broadcast, is this going to be Dryden related or is it something totally different?
It is going to be a Dryden broadcast. She is a new author. You know, you and I and Tracy met about a couple of days ago, just sort of as an introductory meeting. And this is the exact same meeting except for Katerina.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't mind sticking along here.
What's that? Just to remind people who are listening to this to grab Greta's her links to our book and spread the word.
Right
because
on.
That's what we do. We spread each other's words.
That's right. That's right.
In terms of Greta's, I haven't read The Demon's Eye yet. I want to, but I haven't quite gotten to it yet. But one thing is that, you know, I don't know where exactly Sagittarius is located, if it's located within my within that strip territory that would be my empire. Because I was when she said it's not.
No.
Oh, okay, because I was thinking if so it's no whole other area of the galaxy.
Yeah, it's 20,000 years before your story and in a different part of the galaxy.
Okay.
It's on the fringe of the known galaxy at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking maybe the far-flung descendants. They wouldn't be part of the empire, but maybe they could have diplomatic relations or whatever.
Right on.
They could know each other, sort of exchange embassies or something.
Well, they're isolated by 20,000 years of time. So
no, but I mean like
the descendants. Yeah, well, that's entirely possible. We'll have to get you a copy of the Demon's Eye and let you explore whether or not you'd be interested in having connection. I don't remember exactly where M24 is, but it's out on the fringe of the galaxy, so it's pretty far away from your empire, but certainly that's a connection that you could draw if you wanted to. All right, well, it's been wonderful. I want to thank Greta again. I want to thank Eugene and Nicholas. I want to thank you very much for joining us. Next time we schedule for Australian time, I'll actually check the time in your hometown and make sure I get it right.
Well, it was, sorry, Joel, sorry to interrupt, but it was actually 10:30 here in Ballarat, so...
right, I just...
You got to arrive, yeah, for me, at least. I mean, so, yay, half yay. I don't know.
I didn't have it right for me. I had opened the Hangout early in case anybody showed up early, and everybody showed up early because I had the time wrong.
But me.
So I was lost, all except for Tracy, who's in my time zone, and I had to go ask her to join us. So it was my bad, but we do plan as we go forward, maybe once a month or whatever, to do the weekly hangout at a time that's morning time in Australia. Last week we staged it so that it was mid-afternoon in Europe, so that Gavin could join us from Sheffield. And we just want to make sure, this whole process of working cooperatively is tremendously communication dependent. We need to have far more conversations than we possibly think we need in order to make sure that everybody is working to support each other and back everybody up. And we will continue to have sort of around-the-clock meetings to make sure that everybody has a daylight time. All right, and I'm going to take the lack of comment on that to say that I think we're done. It's been a wonderful chance to chat with some folks. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Long live the rebellion.
I think I'll stick around for that other meeting, if that's all right.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, all right. I'm just going to step away and get to the water.
Right on. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Catch ya.